The storm screamed across the obsidian plains of Cathara 7, a world where even the rocks seemed to grow teeth. Lightning cracked through the violet sky in jagged patterns, each bolt illuminating the skeletal remains of ancient creatures that had failed to adapt, failed to survive. This was a hunter's planet, where only the apex predators thrived, and everything else was merely prey waiting to be consumed. Vex pressed himself deeper into the crevice between two volcanic boulders. His four eyes squeezed shut against the howling wind. His silvery fur, normally bristled and proud, lay flat against his trembling body. At only 3 cycles old, he was barely more than a kit, though his species, the Kethril, were born with instincts sharp enough to kill. His mother had taught him to hunt, to stalk, to show no weakness, but she had not taught him how to survive alone. The Kethril hunting party had been ambushed by a territorial clan 3 days prior. Vex had watched from beneath a thorn bush as his mother's throat was torn open by the alpha of the rival pack. He had run then, run until his paws bled and his lungs burned. Run until he could no longer hear the victorious howls of his family's murderers. Now, he was alone on a world that devoured the weak. The storm intensified, and Vex whimpered, a sound no Kethril should ever make. Rain began to fall, not water, but something acidic that hissed against stone. He tried to make himself smaller, to disappear into the rock itself. But the universe had no mercy for frightened cubs. Then, through the chaos, came a sound that didn't belong. Knock, knock. Vex's eyes snapped open. Someone was tapping on the boulder above his hiding spot, not scratching with claws, not slamming with fists, just knocking, politely, as if requesting permission to enter a dwelling. "Hey there," came a voice, soft and strange. "I know you're in there, little one. That storm's only getting worse. You're welcome to come with me if you'd like." Vex's translator implant struggled with the alien language before settling on Standard Galactic. The voice belonged to a human, one of those bizarre bipedal creatures from the fringe worlds. The galaxy whispered stories about humans, how they pack-bonded with anything, how they cried over fictional stories, how they had somehow clawed their way from a death world to the stars with nothing but stubbornness and spite. The Kethril elders called them soft pelts, weak things unworthy of respect. But Vex was cold, terrified and alone, and this human was knocking, asking, not demanding, not commanding, just offering. "I have a ship about 1/2 kilometer from here." The voice continued. "It's warm, safe. I've got emergency rations, probably not what you're used to, but it'll keep you fed. No obligations. You can leave whenever the storm passes." Vex's survival instinct screamed at him. Humans were prey species. Trusting prey was insanity. But those same instincts also told him that staying in this crevice meant death by exposure or acid rain. Slowly, painfully, Vex crawled toward the opening. The human was crouched there, one hand extended but not reaching. She wore a weathered environment suit, her helmet retracted to reveal a face with soft features and kind eyes. Eyes that looked at him without hunger, without calculation, just concern. "There you are," she whispered. "My name's Lyra, what's yours?" Vex's translator crackled. "V-Vex. Vex. That's a strong name." Lyra smiled, and it was the strangest expression. No bared teeth and threat, just warmth. "Come on, buddy. Let's get you out of here." She didn't grab him, didn't try to force him. She simply stood and began walking toward a dim light in the distance, trusting that he would follow. And impossibly he did. Every instinct told Vex this was wrong. He should be hunting this human, not following her. The Kethril were apex predators. They didn't follow anyone, but his paws moved of their own accord, patting through the acidic rain as Lyra shielded him with her body. When they reached her ship, a small battered cargo vessel, she opened the airlock and gestured inside. "After you," Vex hesitated at the threshold. This was a trap. It had to be, but then lightning struck nearby, so close that his fur stood on end and he bolted inside. The warmth hit him immediately. Real warmth, not the artificial heat of Cathara's volcanic vents. The ship's interior was cluttered but clean, filled with strange objects. Books, plants in containers, a worn blanket draped over a chair. It smelled of safety. Lyra entered behind him, sealing the airlock. She peeled off her environment suit and moved to a small food processor. "Let's see. You're a carnivore, right?" I've got some protein synthesizer settings that might work. Vex watched her warily, his claws extending reflexively. She was within striking distance. One leap and he could tear out her throat. That's what a Kethral should do. But Lyra just hummed a soft melody as she worked, completely unconcerned by the predator in her ship. Here, she said, placing a dish of steaming meat-like substance on the floor. It's not fresh kill, but it's nutritionally complete. Eat up. Vex approached cautiously, sniffed the food, and then devoured it with desperate hunger. When he finished, he looked up to find Lyra sitting on the floor nearby, not hovering, not cornering him, just being present. You've been through something terrible, haven't you? She said quietly. The memories crashed over Vex. His mother's blood, the howls, the endless running. Before he could stop himself, a sound escaped his throat, a keen of grief that no Kethral should ever voice. And then Lyra did something incomprehensible. She opened her arms, not to grab him, not to restrain him, just offering. Vex stared at those open arms, at this soft pelt creature who should be terrified of him, who should be running or fighting or doing anything except offering comfort to a predator. The storm raged outside. Inside there was only warmth and an inexplicable sense of safety. Vex moved forward slowly at first, then faster. He climbed into Lyra's lap, curled against her chest, and for the first time since his mother's death, he felt the sensation his species called Koresh, the peace of the protected young. Lyra wrapped her arms around him gently, one hand stroking his rain-soaked fur. "You're safe now," she murmured. "I've got you." And Vex, apex predator of Cathara 7, member of a species that bowed to no one, did something his elders would call weakness. He believed her. Outside, the storm continued its rampage. But inside that small human ship, a predator cub discovered what the galaxy was slowly learning. That humans didn't conquer through strength or fear. They conquered through something far more dangerous, the ability to see a frightened child in even the fiercest monster, and the willingness to knock gently instead of breaking down doors. The Kethral elders were wrong about humans. They weren't soft pelts. They were something far more terrifying. They were kind.